What's up YouTube? I'm here doing my prediction video for UFC Fight Night Hall versus Strickland. Let's start at the bottom. The first fight is Philip Rowe versus Orion Cosce. To me, Philip Rowe looks like he's just kind of decent everywhere. He's got decent striking, decent grappling. He's not amazing. I think that Orion Cosce has really strong takedown defense and really good overall striking. I think he can push a really high pace, and he has a really physical, in-your-face style of fighting. I think he kind of bullies Philip against the fence, beats him up, and probably gets like a second or third round TKO. So I'm going to pick Orion Cosce. Next is Ginny Fry versus Ashley Yoder, and I think this fight could kind of go either way. It kind of depends on how well Ginny Fry can defend the takedowns. Because if Yoder can just take her down, Yoder's going to win easy. I think she will be able to defend the takedowns, and I think she is the slightly better striker. I think this fight's super close. I'm going to pick Fry, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Yoder can just take her down and win all 3 rounds. Like, that's the biggest thing in this fight, because, yeah, like, if Yoder can take her down easy, she's just going to dominate, because she's really good when she gets top game. So, I'm going to pick Fry, but, like I said, don't be surprised if Yoder wins. Next is Danny Chavez versus Kai Kamaka III, and this is such a hard fight, because I think that Kai can win this fight, but I do think Danny Chavez should be the favorite, and, like, a solid favorite. I think his takedown defense is really good, and I think overall striking, Chavez is probably slightly better. And that's the biggest thing, is Kai kind of like relies on mixing up his striking with his grappling, and if he can't get the takedowns, then he has to just kickbox. I think Chavez is the better striker. I will pick Kai. I do think he's got the slightly better conditioning, and I think that he could get a 3rd round finish. The thing is, like I said, if you're betting on this fight, bet on Chavez. Like, Chavez, realistically, he should be the favorite, and he probably will win. I'm not going to pick against Kai, because he's from Hawaii, and as long as he has a chance, I'm going to pick him. I'm only ever going to pick against people from Hawaii if they have literally no chance, and I do think he does have a chance. So, I'm going to pick Kai. I think he gets a 3rd round finish, but like I said, realistically, I think Chavez wins this fight 29-28, if not 30-27. Next is Chris Gritzmacher versus Rafa Garcia, and to me, Chris Gritzmacher is a really good forward pressure fighter with wrestling and decent striking. I think Rafa Garcia kind of fights similarly. The difference is I think Garcia has a much better jiu-jitsu game on the ground, and Gritzmacher has been submitted a bunch of times. And this is what I think this fight's going to be. I think it's going to be kind of back and forth on the feet, lots of volume, lots of pressure. But I think eventually Garcia is going to get this to the ground, and I think once he does, he's going to win by submission. I think he's a really solid jiu-jitsu guy with a lot of submission wins, and I think he's going to win by rear naked choke or arm triangle or something like that. Once he can kind of establish solid top position, I think Rafa Garcia is going to win. Next is Melsik, I can't say his last name, versus Colin Angle. To me, both these guys are really good strikers with good wrestling. I think Colin's definitely the better wrestler, as where Melsik kind of uses it more for defense. My biggest thing with Melsik is he kind of gassed a little bit in his Contender Series fight, but I think if he can just pace himself, he is such a good striker that really doesn't matter. And he still won that fight. He just was getting really tired. I do think overall, Melsik is the better fighter. I think the conditioning is my one and only fear. I think that if Colin can kind of exploit that, he can win. But other than that, I think Melsik is the much better striker and has really good takedown defense when he's not tired, to the point where I don't think Colin can take him down. And this is the thing, Melsik could also win by 1st round KO. So I just think that there's more of a likely chance Melsik's going to win this fight, because if he just slows down a little bit, like kind of Gaethje did, he should be able to beat Colin. I think he's the much better striker and has too good a takedown defense for the grappling to matter. So I'm going to pick Melsik to win by either knockout or TKO. On the main card, we got Brian Barberena versus Jason Witt. And to me, Jason Witt just kind of looks like a big power puncher. He has some decent wrestling, but I think Brian Barberena has good enough takedown defense to avoid the grappling. And I think his volume and forward pressure is going to be the biggest difference in this fight. I think, other than Brian getting caught with a huge shot, his overall striking, I think, is better, and his volume is better. And I think he's going to win by TKO in the 2nd or 3rd round. So I'm picking Brian Barberena. Next is Zaku, I can't say his last name, versus Ryan Benoit. And to me, I feel bad for Zaku, because he keeps on fighting all these good guys since his UFC debut, and he hasn't won a fight in the UFC yet. Even though he looked kind of good in his last fight against Sumo Darji, I think that Ryan Benoit is just too strong of a striker and a wrestler. I mean, striking-wise, these guys are probably close, but I think Ryan Benoit can just mix in his wrestling whenever he wants, and I think he'll just, dominate Zaku in this fight. I think that Ryan Benoit will eventually get this to the ground and win by TKO or submission. Like I said, Zaku just came to the UFC way too early. He was like 3-0, and now he's 3-2, and he's still fighting these guys with like 10, 15 fights on the record. I know Zaku has like a uh, background in kickboxing, but in terms of MMA, I think it's just too early for him. And because of that, I'm gonna pick Benoit to win by either first or second round TKO or submission from like the top position on the ground. Next is Jared Gordon versus Nicholas Stoltz, and to me, this fight's going to be kind of like a back-and-forth striking fight with some grappling here and there. I think these guys are pretty close, but I'm going to lean slightly towards Gooden, I mean. There's not too much to say about this fight, because I think these guys fight very similarly. They're both solid strikers who kind of mix in takedowns here and there. And I don't think either one of them is... They're both good, but they're not amazing. And because of that, I think this fight will be really close, but I'm going to lean slightly towards Gordon. I do think he's just slightly better at both. Next is Cheyenne Buys versus Gloria DePaula, and to me, I think that they're just trying to feed Cheyenne Buys an easy win. They like her, and they kind of want to build her up, and she lost her UFC debut. So I think that this is going to be kind of a striking fight for the most part. I think Buys is probably worth a lot on her takedown defense since her last fight, and I think she's just a better striker than Gloria, and I think she's just going to be able to pick her apart and either win a really dominant decision or get like a late TKO. So I'm going to pick Cheyenne Buys to win by, like I said, decision or TKO. Next is Kyung Ho Kang versus Ronnie Yaya, and this is the biggest thing for me in this fight is, to me, Kang might be the slightly better fighter overall, but he hasn't been fighting recently, and not only that, it's not like he's super young either. He's like 33, 34, and Hani Yaya is like 35, 36. Like, I thought Kang was a lot younger, but really, he's not that much younger than Hani Yaya, and to me, another big thing is Hani Yaya is coming off of back-to-back fights. You know, his last fight, I thought, should have been... Like, he won by arm triangle his last fight, but the fight before was a draw. I thought he clearly won that fight. But that's what I'm saying. I feel like he should be coming off of 2 wins, and they were both within the last, like, 8 or 9 months, and this is, I think, his, like, 3rd fight in, like, a year. You know, like, an overall year, 12 months. As for Kang, I think he hasn't fought in, like, 2 or 3 years. I think it was, like, 2019, 2018, the last time Kang fought. And, you know, like I said, Kang's probably the better striker, and, you know, the stronger guy overall, but I think Hani Yaya is just the better technical fighter. I think Hani Yaya will be able to take this fight to the ground repeatedly and just win by decision. I think, like I said, all this time off for Kang and the fact that Hani Yaya has been fighting actively, and I do give the ground advantage to Yaya. I think that, you know, he has ways of getting guys to the ground, and once he gets them there, he can usually control them and win. I think other than Yaya getting caught with a huge shot, getting knocked out, I think he controls at least 2 of the 3 rounds, if not all 3 rounds, and wins a solid decision. Next is the main event, Uriah Hall versus Sean Strickland, and I know a lot of people might think this is weird, but I actually think the 5 rounds favors Uriah Hall. I do think Sean Strickland is the better volume fighter and has the better conditioning, but the thing with Hall, and we've seen this in like 2 of his last 3 fights, when he fought Bevon Lewis and Anderson Silva, like, both those fights were fights that he was losing until he caught both those guys with huge shots. And this is the thing, Uriah Hall, the reason why he can last later into the rounds is because he doesn't throw a lot. He's really just looking for big shots at this point. And the thing is, I mean, he's not going to get tired if he's not throwing a ton. And if he's just waiting for that huge shot, the more time there is to fight, the more likely is he's going to catch Sean eventually. And that's why I'm leaning towards Uriah Hall. I don't think there's going to be any grappling in this fight. I think it's just going to be striking. And we've seen, like, Sean has TKO power, but a lot of that is when guys try to force their way in on him, and they kind of just get reckless. Like, we've seen when he fought Jack Marshman and when he just fought Krzysztof Jotko, like, when it's just straight kickboxing, a lot of the times he has a hard time finishing people. It's really when he kind of is able to strike it just as good going backwards as he is forward, and he's able to land a lot of solid counter shots when guys are just trying to force their way in on him, which is where a lot of his TKOs come from. And I don't think Hall's going to do that. I think Hall's just going to be waiting for that big counter the whole time. So I feel like there's only 2 ways this fight ends. It's either Sean just wins every single round and wins a 50-45 decision, or Hall eventually catches Sean and knocks him out. And I'm just leaning towards the second. I think that 25 minutes is a long time, and I think eventually Hall's just going to catch him with that big shot and win by KO. So I'm going to pick Uriah Hall to win by KO, and I just don't know what round it's just whenever he eventually times him. So that's my picks. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.